The massive starship UES Horizon drifted silently through the cosmic darkness, its hull gleaming with a soft metallic sheen. Captain J. Park stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the unknown alien vessel approaching. Something about their movement felt different, calculated yet hesitant. Lieutenant Yuna Kim's fingers danced across the communication console, her brow furrowed with concentration. Strange signals flickered across her screens, a language both familiar and completely alien. The translation algorithm struggled, producing fragmented messages that made little sense. "Captain," she called out, her voice steady but tense. "They're attempting communication." Jay moved closer, studying the flickering symbols. Years of military training had taught him to read between the lines, to understand what wasn't being said. The alien vessel looked sleek, almost organic, with curves that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. A low hum filled the bridge. The alien transmission became clearer, a series of diplomatic overtures that sounded more like thinly veiled threats. They spoke of integration and peaceful collaboration, words that rang hollow to the human crew. Memories of Earth's history coursed through Jay's mind. Humanity had survived countless invasions, conflicts, and near-extinction events. They had transformed barren planets, fought impossible wars, and rebuilt civilization from ashes more times than any species could count. The ship's tactical officer, a young man named Hyun, watched his screens intently. His hand hovered near, the weapon systems waiting for a command. Every human on the bridge understood what was at stake. This was more than a first contact scenario. This was a test. Yuna's translation finally stabilized. The alien message became clear. They wanted humanity to submit, to become part of their galactic confederation. They described humans as primitive and underdeveloped, suggesting that resistance would be futile. Jay remembered the stories his grandfather told him, tales of human resilience, of fighting against impossible odds. Those stories weren't just history. They were a blueprint for survival. "Prepare defensive formations," he ordered quietly. The alien vessel moved closer, its intentions becoming increasingly clear. They expected submission, they expected fear. What they didn't understand was the fundamental nature of human beings, a species that transformed challenges into opportunities. Hyun's fingers touched the weapon systems. The ship's AI began calculating precise strike coordinates with inhuman speed. Decades of technological advancement had given humans an edge that most species couldn't comprehend, the ability to adapt instantly. The first attack came swiftly. The alien vessel launched what they considered a sophisticated negotiation protocol, a series of energy pulses designed to disable human communication and navigation systems. To their shock, the UES Horizon not only absorbed the attack, but immediately counterattacked. Jay watched with a calm precision as their ship's systems transformed the alien's energy pulse into a targeting mechanism. Within moments, they had mapped every critical system of the alien vessel. "Target locked," Hyun reported. 17 minutes later, the alien ship was nothing more than scattered debris. No dramatic explosions, no prolonged battle, just precise, calculated destruction. Lieutenant Kim looked at her captain, a mix of professional respect and barely concealed excitement in her eyes. They had just sent a message to the universe. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The bridge crew remained silent, understanding the magnitude of what had just occurred. This wasn't just a battle. This was a declaration. Humans would not be controlled. They would not be categorized or confined. As the UES Horizon continued its journey, the scattered remains of the alien vessel served as a stark reminder. First contact had been made, and humanity had spoken its language, a language of survival, precision, and absolute determination. J. Park returned to his command chair, knowing that this was just the beginning. The universe was about to learn who humans truly were. Deep within the crystalline chambers of the Galactic Confederation's Central Research Complex, Dr. Lyra examined the data streams with growing unease. Holographic displays flickered around her, each screen filled with information about humanity that defied conventional understanding. The research team had been studying human history for weeks, and what they discovered terrified them more with each passing hour. Humans were not just another species to be categorized and controlled. They were something entirely different. Dr. Seok Lee's compiled report lay at the center of the investigation. Pages of documented human achievements, conflicts, and technological leaps spread across the main display. From primitive stone tools to interstellar travel in just a few thousand years, humanity's progression was unlike anything the Confederation had ever witnessed. "Look at their adaptation," one researcher whispered, studying a historical record of human warfare. They had transformed from simple tribal conflicts to global communication and space exploration in mere centuries, a blink of an eye by galactic standards. The most troubling aspect was their psychological profile. Humans didn't just survive, they thrived in the most impossible conditions. Wars, environmental disasters, technological challenges, each obstacle became an opportunity for growth. Where other species would collapse, humans would rebuild, innovate, and surge forward. Military analysts reviewed the recent encounter with the diplomatic vessel. The precision of the human response was not just tactical, it was almost artistic in its efficiency. They had transformed an energy pulse into a complete tactical advantage in moments. Lyra's crystalline form shifted, reflecting her internal conflict. The Confederation had encountered numerous species during their galactic expansion. Some were peaceful, some were aggressive, but none compared to humans. Their technological progression was equally alarming. In just a few decades, they had developed quantum communication, advanced energy manipulation, and adaptive AI systems that seemed to learn and grow faster than any known technology. Historical records showed a species that transformed everything it touched. They had taken barren planets and turned them into thriving ecosystems. They had created medical technologies that could heal previously incurable diseases. Their ability to solve complex problems seemed to have no limit. The most chilling discovery came from their psychological reports. Humans didn't just fight wars, they remembered them, learned from them, and used those lessons to prevent future conflicts. Their capacity for both destruction and creation was unprecedented. "We cannot allow them to expand," one senior researcher concluded. The room fell silent, understanding the weight of those words. Genetic analysis revealed something even more disturbing. Human DNA showed an incredible capacity for rapid mutation and adaptation. Where other species would take thousands of years to evolve, humans could potentially change in generations. Military strategists calculated potential scenarios. Each projection showed the same result. If humans were left unchecked, they could potentially destabilize the entire galactic power structure within a few centuries. Dr. Seok Lee's final recommendation was clear and brutal. Quarantine was the only option. Isolation would prevent human expansion while giving the Confederation time to develop more comprehensive containment strategies. The researchers shared a collective moment of understanding. Humanity represented something the Confederation had never encountered, a species with seemingly unlimited potential, driven by an incomprehensible mix of curiosity, survival instinct, and relentless innovation. As the final reports were compiled, a sense of both fear and reluctant respect filled the research complex. Humans were not just another species to be managed. They were a force of nature, unpredictable, uncontrollable, and absolutely unstoppable. The Galactic Confederation would make its move. Humanity would be contained. But deep down, in the quiet moments of reflection, every researcher knew one thing. This was not the end. This was just the beginning of a conflict that would reshape the understanding of life itself. Lyra looked at the final report, her crystalline form reflecting the complex emotions of an entire civilization facing an unprecedented challenge. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The massive energy barrier materialized without warning, a shimmering wall of quantum-locked particles stretching across billions of kilometers. Commander Min Park watched the holographic display, his fingers tracing the intricate boundary that now surrounded human-controlled space. "They think they can stop us," he muttered to Lieutenant Yun Kim, who stood silently beside him. The quarantine was both a marvel of technology and an insult to human determination. Massive quantum generators positioned at strategic points created an interdimensional barrier unlike anything previously conceived. The Galactic Confederation believed they had found the perfect solution, a cage to contain humanity. What they didn't understand was that humans viewed challenges as invitations, not limitations. Research stations across human-controlled space immediately began analyzing the barrier. Thousands of scientists worked around the clock, their computers humming with calculations and potential breach strategies. Where other species might have been discouraged, humans saw an engineering problem waiting to be solved. The first attempt to understand the barrier came from a small research team led by Dr. Jay Huang. Using experimental quantum probes, they began mapping the barrier's molecular structure. Each scan revealed complexity that both frustrated and excited the researchers. Communication between human colonies became critical. Encrypted quantum channels lit up with information, sharing every tiny discovery about the quarantine. It was a network of intelligence that moved faster than any centralized system could comprehend. Military installations prepared for potential conflict. Spacecraft were modified, weapon systems upgraded. The quarantine wasn't just a physical barrier. It was a challenge that would push human innovation to its absolute limits. Young technicians worked alongside veteran scientists, their combined knowledge creating solutions that defied conventional understanding. They didn't just want to break through the barrier, they wanted to understand it, to master it. Commander Park watched as the first experimental quantum tunneling device was prepared. It was a desperate attempt, a long shot that most would consider impossible. But impossibility had never stopped humans before. The research station buzzed with nervous energy. Teams from different colonies shared real-time data, their communication networks creating a living, breathing intelligence that adapted with each new piece of information. "We're ready," Dr. Huang announced, his voice calm but charged with excitement. The quantum tunneling device looked deceptively simple, a collection of advanced circuitry and energy collectors that seemed almost fragile. But within its design lay years of human innovation, countless sleepless nights, and an unbreakable spirit of determination. As the device powered up, the research team held their collective breath. The barrier flickered slightly, almost imperceptibly. It was a tiny response, but to humans it was everything. "First breakthrough detected," a young technician called out, her voice breaking with excitement. The Galactic Confederation had made a critical mistake. They viewed the quarantine as a final solution, a way to contain a potentially dangerous species. What they didn't understand was that humans saw barriers as temporary obstacles. Min Park allowed himself a small smile. The barrier was impressive, but it was just technology. And technology was something humans understood better than anyone else in the galaxy. Communication channels between human colonies began sharing the initial breakthrough. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a start. Each small weakness would be explored, expanded, and eventually overcome. The quantum tunneling device continued its work, probing, analyzing, searching for vulnerabilities. Humanity had been contained, but not defeated. And in that difference lay their greatest strength. As the research continued, one thing became abundantly clear. The quarantine was not an end. It was simply the next challenge for a species that had never known the meaning of impossible. The barrier shimmered, a delicate, quantum dance of energy and limitation, but beneath it, human determination burned bright, a force more powerful than any technological cage could contain. The resistance began quietly, almost imperceptibly. Lieutenant Yuna Kim's breakthrough in quantum entanglement communication changed everything. What had started as a seemingly impossible challenge became a network of human determination that spread faster than any barrier could contain. Scattered human colonies, previously isolated, now communicated through intricate quantum channels. Each colony became a node of resistance, sharing technological discoveries, tactical information, and unbreakable hope. The Galactic Confederation had hoped to divide humanity. Instead, they had accidentally created the most interconnected network in galactic history. Dr. Seok Park's research team on the outer colony of New Terra developed the first significant breakthrough. Their experimental quantum tunneling device wasn't just a method of communication, it was a weapon of adaptation. Each test weakened the barrier's molecular structure, creating microscopic vulnerabilities that grew with each attempt. Military installations across human-controlled space began coordinating their efforts. Young engineers worked alongside veteran scientists, their combined knowledge creating solutions that defied conventional understanding. They didn't just want to break through the barrier, they wanted to understand it, to master it. Commander Min Choi watched the first successful quantum tunnel test with a mixture of professional calm and barely contained excitement. The holographic display showed a tiny breach, less than a nanometer wide, but it was proof of concept. Humans had always excelled at turning impossibilities into opportunities. The resistance wasn't just technological, it was psychological. Every human understood that the quarantine was more than a physical barrier. It was a challenge to their very existence. Schools began teaching advanced quantum mechanics alongside resistance strategies. Children drew diagrams of barrier weaknesses instead of typical childhood drawings. Experimental spacecraft began testing the barrier's limits. Each probe, each mission, provided crucial data. The Galactic Confederation had designed a perfect cage, or so they thought. They didn't understand that humans saw limitations as temporary obstacles. Yuna Kim's communication network became the nervous system of human resistance. Encrypted channels carried more than just information. They carried hope, determination, and an unbreakable spirit of innovation. Colonies that had never directly communicated now shared real-time data, creating a living, breathing intelligence that adapted faster than any centralized system could comprehend. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A small research station on the edge of human-controlled space discovered that the barrier's quantum structure had a fundamental weakness. It was designed to be perfect, but perfection was a concept humans had long since learned to challenge. Military strategists began developing new approaches. They weren't planning a direct assault, that would be too simple. Instead, they were preparing a multi-layered attack that would exploit every tiny vulnerability in the barrier's design. Dr. Seok Park's team worked around the clock. Their quantum tunneling devices became more sophisticated with each iteration. What had started as a desperate attempt to communicate now became a potential method of complete barrier dissolution. Colonies began sharing resources in ways never seen before. Manufacturing capabilities were redistributed, research findings were immediately transmitted, and a sense of unified purpose emerged. The Galactic Confederation had tried to divide humanity. Instead, they had created the most unified human civilization in history. The resistance wasn't just about breaking through a barrier, it was about proving a fundamental truth about human existence, that no limitation could contain their spirit of innovation and determination. Commander Min Choi reviewed the latest data. The barrier was weakening, not dramatically but consistently. Each probe, each quantum tunnel, each communication channel was eating away at the supposedly impenetrable wall. Young technicians worked alongside veteran scientists, their combined knowledge creating solutions that seemed like science fiction just months earlier. They shared a common understanding. Surrender was not an option. Adaptation was the only way forward. As the resistance continued, one thing became clear. The Galactic Confederation had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for innovation, for unity, for turning challenges into opportunities. The barrier shimmered, a complex quantum dance of energy and limitation. But beneath it, human determination burned bright. A force, more powerful than any technological cage could contain. Humanity would not be quarantined. They would be free. The stars trembled as the human fleet emerged from quantum tunnels. Captain J. Park stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, his eyes fixed on the massive Galactic Confederation defense grid. This was more than a battle. This was humanity's declaration of existence. Hundreds of ships materialized simultaneously, a coordinated assault that defied conventional military strategy. Each vessel carried the hopes of scattered human colonies, generations of technological innovation compressed into a single moment of confrontation. The Confederation's defense grid was impressive, a network of quantum shields and energy weapons that had kept peace in the galaxy for millennia. They had never encountered a species like humans before. Lieutenant Yoon Kim's fingers danced across the communication systems. No traditional weapons would be fired. This was a different kind of assault, a demonstration of human capability that would reshape galactic understanding. Quantum disruption signals began spreading through the defense grid. Where other species would have launched direct attacks, humans were systematically dismantling the system from within. Each signal was a precise mathematical message. We are here. We will not be stopped. Commander Min Choi watched from a secondary command center. Years of preparation had led to this moment. The barrier that was meant to contain humanity was about to become its greatest weakness. The first signs of system failure appeared subtly. Defensive platforms began to flicker, their quantum locks breaking down in ways the Confederation's best scientists couldn't predict. Humans had turned the very technology of containment into a weapon of liberation. Dr. Seok Park's quantum tunneling research reached its ultimate test. The barrier that had seemed impenetrable now became a network of vulnerability. Each quantum probe carried not just information, but a fundamental challenge to the existing galactic order. Alien commanders watched in disbelief. Humanity wasn't destroying the defense grid. They were rewriting its fundamental operating principles. Where other species saw a wall, humans saw a complex system waiting to be understood and transformed. Communication channels across human colonies lit up. This wasn't just a military operation. It was a collective effort of an entire species proving its right to exist, to expand, to choose its own destiny. The Confederation's leadership began emergency meetings. Their most advanced technology was being systematically dismantled by a species they had considered primitive. Each moment revealed another layer of human innovation they had completely misunderstood. J. Park's transmission was simple and direct. No dramatic speeches, no threats, just a clear message broadcast across all frequencies. We are here. We will not be stopped. The quantum disruption spread like a living network. Defense platforms began to integrate rather than resist, a testament to human ability to transform confrontation into cooperation. It wasn't destruction. It was radical adaptation. Hours passed. What should have been a massive conflict became something entirely different. The human fleet didn't fire a single traditional weapon. They dismantled, understood, and ultimately transformed the very system designed to contain them. As the final quantum locks failed, something unexpected happened. The Confederation's defense grid didn't collapse. It reconfigured, showing the first signs of a fundamental technological evolution that humans had triggered. Dr. Yoon Kim watched the data streams with quiet amazement. They hadn't just broken through a barrier. They had introduced a new way of thinking to an entire galactic civilization. The UES horizon moved forward, not as a weapon of war but as a beacon of possibility. Humanity had proven that limitations were nothing more than challenges waiting to be understood. Captain J. Park allowed himself a small smile. This wasn't an ending. This was a beginning. The universe watched, holding its breath. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. In that moment between the stars, a new chapter of galactic history was being written. Not with weapons, but with understanding. Not through destruction, but through the most powerful force in existence, human potential. The barrier was gone. Humanity was free.